the Practical Prayer Podcast, recording session on New Thought Media Network. I am Bill Marchiony, that's Carol Lawrence over yonder, and we're here on New Thought Media Network. Good afternoon for those of you who are joining us live on the East Coast. Good day for those of you who are joining us elsewhere. And hey, yo, if you're watching the recording. It's wonderful to see you guys. So in a few minutes, we're going to start recording an episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast, which will go float out into podcast land in a week or so. This is actually episode number 199. Wow. So I feel like having a car where the odometer is about to, turn over with all the zeros again.
Yeah.
It's like, and the imagined meaning of that, which is completely non-existent. But, it's a thing. It's like, get some candles and blow them out. Because, it can as easily be a thing as not. So anyway, hello,
It's
Carol.
okay.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I shared with you that I beat a cramp from the gym just in time to get here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. Because when you got a cramp, not so good.
Oh, yeah. And happy Mother's Day, by the way. We just celebrated Mother's
Thank
Day
you.
over the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big
Thank
thing.
you. It was
So,
big.
Yeah, and it's not like Mother's Day is actually is the thing that makes being a mother for all those years worthwhile. It's just a little acknowledgement. It's one of those gold star things. It's like, yep, happy Mother's Day.
Spoken like a true man who's not a mother. Okay? It was a big deal.
Having the kids and raising them was a bigger deal than whatever they did on Mother's Day, right?
No. I mean, they don't have to. Michael's in Georgia, so he couldn't come. But it's a big deal. It is. It's one day having them and raising them and all that, but the rest, it's fun. It's a big deal.
Okay. All right.
So I got you on that one, right?
You got me on that one. I'm just going to shut up.
That would have been a great episode to do.
And we got plenty of episodes to do. So, by the way, I just wanted to say that if you are watching live and you have a question or a comment or a prayer request, and the prayer request comes in the form of, here's this thing in my life that ain't working. Can you help me with it? We'd be happy to help with that. And if you are unable to do that in real time because you're watching on the recording, then you can certainly go over to the website, which is bethelight.com, be-the-light.com. And there's a section for the Practical Prayer Podcast on there, including a button where you can submit your question, request, etc. And so this week, I understand we're going to be talking about one of those requests that came in.
Yep.
And I remember what I sent to you, but I don't remember what I said, which makes this just endless fun.
It was fun. The good thing is we didn't talk about it before this.
Right.
You did whatever you did, and I did whatever I do. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yep. To see what the perspective on that is. And for me, it's always interesting when I'm doing a practical prayer for somebody live, and afterwards they say, "Oh, that was great. How did you say this again?" It's like, I have no idea. I go into complete surrender mode and let the infinite speak through my mouth. And sometimes I remember in general what it was that I said, but no, that's why you have transcripts.
Yeah, but that's an amazing thing. It is. And it's got to be, for me, I experience it not with practical prayer, but elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's comforting because, I go into something just like this. When I saw the request, my first, control freak thing was to, okay. Then I said, wait a minute, that's not how we do things now. Just, what would you do? Just, if you were just doing, what would you do? What's your natural inclination to doing approach like this? And it was amazing. Okay. So now, we'll see.
All right. Well, let's get the podcast episode underway and then compare notes on said story. All right, here we go.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
And we have a wonderful exercise to do on the Practical Prayer Podcast today because, I will let Carol introduce the topic because I'm just going to pretend I don't know anything about it and then play along.
Okay, all right. Let me see. We got a letter. So the topic is response from. I would love to say this response from the universe, which is which is so exciting because I'm as excited to see how our responses are different, but yet they are united in one absolute amazing truth that works.
We're actually on episode number 199 of this podcast. And so Carol and I have been doing this for a while. And so it is possible that Carol is going to channel her inner Bill and figure out what it was that I would have said to this inquiry or request. And then we're going to see how they come up differently. And the question was about somebody who's trying to do prayer and keeps having obsessive or intrusive thoughts and, thinking about something bad happening and being concerned that those intrusive thoughts are going to create the experience of whatever those bad things are happening. Did I paraphrase accurately enough without reading the whole thing?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So
I'm going to let you talk first because I remember what I said.
you don't. Well, okay. So when I thought about it, I said, okay, let me just, I think we said this backstage. I thought, just let me do this the way I would do it. If I was talking to this person, let me just do it the way I do it. And I actually said, I'm not sure whether Bill would look at it like this because he likes to use positive terms and positive words. And it's not that I don't like to use them, it's that I wanted to use the same words that the person used.
Gotcha.
So I looked at it like that, the person said, can I say what the person said? Because we're not
Absolutely,
saying
yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, as much as you want.
So the person said that first of all, they highly praised your book. They really liked it, but they had some questions. And they said prayer sometimes is made difficult due to obsessive and intrusive thoughts. And then he went on to describe what those kinds of thoughts were. So the first thing I thought of is that, okay, you have obsessive and obtrusive thoughts. You're having a conversation with yourself. Because I went back to the traditional interpretation of what's going on inside of us. So the God talk part or the biblical talk part would say there's the carnal man inside and the spiritual man inside. And they're talking to each other and they're at war. Spirituality would say your higher self and your lower self are dealing with these. So I took all of those and I said, so actually you're talking to yourself. So you got to talk back to yourself.
Okay.
You can't let your negative self have the last word. And that's what I think sometimes happens. We these ugly thoughts that, be gracious to yourself. Be kind. Don't let the ugly thoughts, because they're strong, and ugly seems strong. It always does. So talk back to it. And you may have to simply say, stop. He said, I may have a thought. One of those thoughts is, I might trip, or I'll trip and fall. Or I fear because of that thought getting stuck in manifest. And I said, this is just you talking to you. So talk back to yourself and say, I'm not going to fall. You're not going to fall. Tripping will overtake the scenario, because once you entertain the thought, it just gets bigger and bigger. So stop. Just stop talking to me like that. And it really, from, I don't know how, from my perspective, that's what you do before you get to the prayer. It's like you got to get yourself under control and say, stop it. I'm not going to trip. I'm not going to trip because I'm going to be careful. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but have you ever had an experience where you dropped something or stumbled or tripped or banged into something, even though you were being careful?
Well,
turns out maybe you weren't being careful enough, or you got to beat yourself up later that you didn't do a good job of it?
No, you're going too far here. You're going too far. See, I could relate to this because I had bilateral knee replacement. So falling is an issue. It was then. I had it 19 years ago. It is still in the back of my mind every now and then. And so I was really every step, going up the step, I'm going to fall, going down the step, until I just said, wait a minute. You're being careful. You're not going to fall. You're just not. You feel out of balance. That's natural. Whatever it is, that's natural. Don't beat yourself up because you think you're going to fall. You feel out, maybe the sidewalk is not even. Okay, that's fine. That's natural. But you're not going to fall because you're going to be careful. And telling yourself that over and over, telling myself, I'll speak in my terms.
Okay.
Telling myself that over and over again, in a sense, made me feel like I could trust myself. I'm not going to fall because I'm going to be careful.
Gotcha.
And
so you were very much at the change your thinking perspective of this. If the thinking is about tripping or falling or having an accident, then your thing is to think about not having an accident.
Because not just not having an accident, but whatever, it's like, I don't want to say control freak, but whatever.
You might as well.
No, it's because it's not that. It's not that. It's whatever you have at your disposal, no matter how minimal it may seem. Just use that. I'm going to be careful. I couldn't flatten sidewalks. I couldn't, there was so many variables that I didn't have control over and still don't. But the only thing I had to do was convince myself that I am going to be careful. I'm going to be more careful than I am afraid. And it really didn't take that long because it's being kind and taking the fear away. And I'm trusting me. I'm not just going to walk out here and fall down. I'm going to be, I'm going to be careful. So that was, that was my initial thought on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll compare notes. My initial thought on that, and there are a couple of questions that are going on. The first one is, here's these random thoughts about something bad happening, and the concern is that serves as a visualization or an intention, and that's going to create the experience. So having that random thought of falling is going to cause the fall to happen, and that is completely understandable. It's not necessary. So what I like to do is, as we've discussed on numerous occasions, is the pivot. Okay, so here's this random thought about falling. First question is, all right, so if this is a universe where falling is coming to mind, what do you want to do instead? You know, when that opportunity comes along to fall down or do something different, what do you want to do? Because what you want to do is stop thinking about falling and think about, oh, well, I'm perfectly supported. I move gracefully and easily and gently through life. I am in balance. Or whatever the falling brings to mind, is to turn away from that and turn to something else. So that's the big piece of it as far as I'm concerned. So it's not just, you know, knowing that I'm not going to fall. What am I going to do? Because the universe is saying yes to something. So I might as well give it what I want to have happen, rather than a stop sign in front of the thing that I don't want. The other thing that is really important, and I find that when people are dealing with these thoughts that are coming up, you know, the random negative, horrible thoughts, you know, there's a visual that, you know, left over from childhood or something that happened in a movie or a nightmare, and that comes along and it's like gripping because, oh my God, I'm creating my reality with this. And I love going back to the fundamentals, to the foundational notion. It is done unto you as you think? No. As you believe. As you believe. So if somebody has one of those thoughts and they chase the thoughts and they start believing the thought, it is not the thought that's going to cause that experience of falling down or having a problem. It's the belief that that's what's going to happen to them. If we can interrupt that process and go from the thought of somebody who falls down to the belief that I am completely supported and well balanced, then the thing that we're giving our energy to is that experience of being balanced and in harmony. And there's not going to be an issue with the falling.
Okay, and I think we are on that point. I think we're saying exactly the same thing, because I did look at the second. I looked at that as the second part of it, and I thought, again, I use the same language back to people that they use to me, so it's like it's going to repeat, and I would say that thought is not correct, and replace that thought immediately with something else. So you're saying you would turn away from it.
Well,
and
just,
that's
if you're
true.
going to have
Right.
a different thought, make it a happy thought.
Yeah, so we're saying, I think we're saying the same
think we're
thing. I'm
saying-
just saying,
I
yeah,
think we
because
are.
I'm just saying replace the thought immediately. And that's it, because you are deciding that whatever this is not, I'm taking the energy away from that negative energy,
Yeah.
because I can change this immediately.
You can definitely change the thought. And if there's an underlying belief, we can change the underlying belief. And it's interesting to understand how our thinking mechanism works. Because it has been estimated that people have around 70,000 thoughts a day. Really? 70,000? How many of those are new? Probably not that many. Probably most of them are the same old thoughts that we've been having for a long time. I'll do a really quick exercise, and I'm going to use red roses to do that. So what I want you to do is to not think about a red rose. Do not, under any circumstances, visualize or bring to mind the image of a red rose. Don't have any awareness whatsoever of the color of the red rose or the texture of the petals, the feel of the stem, nothing. I want you to not think about a red rose. And you can't do it because every time you think about not seeing a red rose, there it is. And the more I say not to do it, the more detail comes along. Okay? But if I tell you to think about a fern, okay, and perhaps a bed of ferns that are growing in the woods, and it's one of those warm summer days where there's a cool breeze and the ferns are growing in the shade, and they've got that fragrance of the swampy ground. During that whole thing, you weren't thinking about red roses at all. And that's the same thing. Think about something else.
And I think the idea is that you're allowed to do that. You can do that. It's not something, because one of the words, I mean, let's just look quick at what he said, was it was about setting an intention. And he was alluding to, if you put that out there, and then that's what's going to come back. And I'm thinking, okay, let's look at this really simply. If you're turning away from something, you put that thought out there, you immediately call it back. I didn't mean that. That's not what I meant to say. And just rephrase it. And you have the right, you have the power to do that because it's within your power to do it. And when we talk about being co-creators with God, okay, we don't have to go all deep down the road about what that means, but if you are a co-creator, you at least are in partnership with God in all situations. So how I'm exercising the power that I have in this partnership is that thought went out, I'm calling it back, I'm changing. And I can do an edit or an amendment or whatever you want to call it, and that's it, and I'm not accepting that.
There you
And
go.
you can, and you can even say things like, I'm changing it before it gets to its destination. I
Yep.
just stopped it.
Okay, let's take a break, and when we continue, we will discuss the metaphysics and the spiritual power of a 24-hour diner.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Bill Marchiony.
We're talking about intrusive thoughts, obsessive thoughts, those random things that come to mind about, oh, something bad is going to happen to me. And if we chase them down the rabbit hole, then are we going to create that in our experience? And the answer is we can, but we don't have to. And I promised before the break that we would talk about the spiritual metaphor of a 24-hour diner. Now, you're currently living in New Jersey, which is the land of the amazing 24-hour diner. If you can find a diner in New Jersey on a road that's named by a number, like on 38 or 70 or 22, that's a diner. And one of the things that you notice when you go into one of those diners is they've got those, the menus, that are multiple pages long. Maybe they're spiral bound and they're, wrapped in plastic, and you can look at page after page after page with the small type of all the different things that you can get at the diner. And you know what they're going to bring you to eat at the diner? Whatever you ask for. And as you were saying, if you say, I'd like to have the chicken livers. No, wait, I'm going to have a cheeseburger. No, wait, I'm going to have the croquettes. By the way, I don't have the croquettes. No, wait, say, I want to have the fish. Or you can make up your mind. You could say, bring 2 or 3 of them for me. Bring them in the order that you want to have them. And the answer from the kitchen, the answer from the server is going to be yes. In the New Jersey diner, it's going to be yes, hon. Right? And what shows up is a pretty close approximation to what you had in mind. Sometimes it's spectacular. Sometimes it's like, oh, I could have chosen something different. But it's going to be whatever is based on the intention that you set, the order that you made. There's an infinite creative kitchen that's got all the ingredients back there. George and Stavro are ready to cook. And you just get to say, this is what I want to have. And as soon as you're clear about it, it's going to happen. And if you're having random thoughts about maybe, do I want liver or the French onion soup, or do I want to have this or that, it doesn't do anything. They don't get to work on those. They don't get to work until you set an intention and let it loose. Same thing happens with those random thoughts that are passing by. When we notice that we're having them, especially if they're disturbing us, the thing to do is to, as you pointed out, excavate those thoughts out so we can stop having them, so we can think about something different, because eventually The waitress is going to get bored and is going to give us the last thing we mentioned. It's like, I'm going off shift soon, hon. I'm just going to bring you the cheeseburger.
I think a lot of some of the things that you say, like the one-liners, are really powerful. I don't know if you think of them that way. But, little words like infinite possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And those little things make the difference. To me, those are the little anchors that give strength and stability to you shifting to another thought. Because shifting or thinking you can do it, even though you have the right to do it, it's frightening. It doesn't feel right. I know I can. I mean, I was talking to somebody recently that they just absolutely have found every reason that their life is in an S-hole. including that they can justify it as God's plan that it's there. And I'm like, okay, all right. So the first thing with infinite possibilities, just that little thought. You said it one time. And I always say to things like that, you should have never told me that. Because if it's infinite possibilities, then there are possibilities available that I have not thought of.
Absolutely.
I'm going to check this out.
Absolutely.
So, when the ideas come that you're going to fall or all this negative stuff, yeah, but there's some possibilities out there that I won't. And that's what I'm hanging on to. I don't have to fall. Now, then I'll do the shift. But, it's just a little, and that's just me, I just go for the littlest thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand, as you're talking about that, there is, from the side of the street that you came in on, there's a lot of belief that the infinite's not going to give you what it is that you want. That those things are not a possibility for you. Because, there's the lowly me asking for something and the divine just doesn't want to give it to me. The answer for me is going to be no. And with that as the background or the framework, it's understandable. Oh, this horrible thing that I've been thinking about might be the only possibility for me. Now what am I going to do about that? And we get completely wrapped around the axle about that. And it's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's understandable, but it's not necessary. So, my favorite question, what do you want instead?
Yeah.
What do you want instead?
Yeah. And, it's like, what do you have? And the other thing is, too, when you see those things that have happened or you imagine they're happening, you may have seen it happen to other people. So, and then you have other people that have the same theology that you have, and then it's, it just keeps building. But what do you want instead? Here's my answer to that. What have you got to lose? Because, the way you're going at it, you're tanked already. So try something different. Even if it might work, it might work, because there is God, right? You can't really lock God into anything. So
That'd be an interesting idea, wouldn't it?
yeah, so it's possible that you're not going to fall. It's possible that this isn't going to happen. So, it takes a bit, especially with stuff that's ingrained a lot, to just even think that you have the right to think of it in another way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you want instead?
Yeah. And even that may take a while. Because people say, I don't know.
That's actually really powerful. When we say, I don't know, that leaves a lot of room for something to happen that we have not narrowed it down to. Infinite possibility is really big. It is possible that something good can happen that is so far outside of anything that we thought of, so far out of range that people are just surprised afterwards. How did that work so beautifully well? It's like, it's none of our business. None of our business. A prompt comes along, falling down, tripping, having a problem. scraping my knee. Oh, what do I want to have instead? You know what? I want to be in perfect balance. I want to go through life in comfort and harmony and grace, and I want to be able to help other people who are concerned about these same sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And then when it turns out that somebody shows up and they're so deeply grateful because of some one little thing that we were able to say from having been on our path, it's like, oh, that's where the gift is. I had no idea why the thought that I was thinking about this falling down is actually going to be helpful for me and for other people. We don't know. We don't know how the story's coming together.
We don't know. I kind of hang out on the positive side there, where I'm not falling. I'm just not going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always, well, you know, there's that possibility. That's not happening. It's just not happening.
I spent a number of years, one of my hobbies, my recreational activity was rock climbing. You know, I go in the gym. I don't know if you've been, you know, rock climbing either indoors or outdoors, but you get a rope and a harness and stuff, and you go climb up to the top, and then when you're done, you let go, and you're lowered down by your partner who's got the other end of the rope. And technically, that's falling. So you climb up by yourself, and then you fall back down with, you know, the guidance and assistance of your friend. And every once in a while, you're reaching for a hold, and you fall, and you get caught by the rope. So instead of falling 30 feet to the ground, or my highest one was about 1,200 feet to the ground, it's 2 or 3 feet. And then I would go to the doctor, and the doctor, you know, would say, "Have you had any unexpected falls?" It's like, either no or hundreds. How do I answer that question? So it wasn't about not falling. It was about being safe and comfortable and experiencing joy, regardless of the falling. Mm-hmm. So, you know, get yourself some climbing shoes and a harness and a partner.
Yeah, and I'm reflecting back on the letter the person wrote.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about, essentially they didn't use the word energy, but, you know, you put your focus out there and that's what's going to come back. Wait a minute, meet that at least halfway or equal. Okay, there are a lot of things that could happen, but there's a lot of things that don't have to happen.
Yep.
You know, when I say things like, that's not going to happen, it's not just not going to happen. That's me sending out equal, you know, with equal force.
Right.
And I don't entertain the possibility that it's not going to happen. I'm going to be cool. I remember when the first time my children saw me come down the steps, you know, a while after the surgery, and they were at the bottom. They were so amazed. And they made this big, they couldn't believe, look at you, you're coming down. And it was a very long staircase. And to me, there was not, the possibility of falling was not there. I didn't stop and say, I'm going to fall. I'm going down the steps, period. But now I had said that a lot. And they were, oh my God, look at you. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example of what happens when principle meets personality, because that is absolutely the right way for you to do it. That is perfect for you.
But it could be a rewrite, because you can come up thinking that this is the way to think, you know, and you could do it's a lot of work, you know. I use the term work. You got to work on a lot of different things also, like what you would tend to feel. Okay, I'm not going to do that. But here's what I say. You don't have anything more important to do than to take care of you and get yourself on the right path or the right way of thinking. You got nothing more important to do than that. So let's just start with the little stuff here.
Yep. Take a step and another step and another step. Let's take another break, and when we continue, a practical prayer that kind of either ties all of this stuff together or goes off in a completely different direction. I'm not making any commitments.
Get inspiration in an instant. God calls are the gentle and uplifting moment of truth to help you remember that the bright light of God's love is shining right now as you.
It's your God Call with Reverend Bill.
Start your 2-week free trial today, and you'll get a phone call 4 times a week from Reverend Bill with an uplifting half-minute message filled with insight, wisdom, story, and fun.
Let your light shine.
You can answer the call to listen to it live or let it go to voicemail so you can hear it later. After the free trial, your subscription is just $5.95 a month. The details are at godcall.org. God calls are disruptive, intentionally.
Whenever you write something, put on a gold star.
They take you away from your routine to remind you about the truth of who you really are. They come at random times between 8:15 a.m. and 6 p.m., so you won't be expecting them. And somehow, the message is exactly what you need to hear at the time.
Magic is loose in the world.
It's a moment of motivation in the middle of your day. Find out more and start your 2-week free trial now at godcall.org.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
Having a wonderful conversation based on intrusive thoughts and being able to change or pivot from those intrusive thoughts or negative thoughts or undesirable things happening to how we shift our consciousness, either by saying, I'm not going to fall, that has nothing to do with me, or to pivot and choose something different. So, and a fascinating conversation. And I love listening to the difference between the way Carol thinks of stuff and the way that I think of stuff, which is very similar, but there's some personality in there. Little shifts. So, the prayer that we're doing today is kind of based on that notion of the 24-hour diner with the huge menu and the fact that we can go in and ask for anything and they'll cook something. And it's possible to go and ask for, see that they have these various different things on the menu and say, can you make me this thing that's not on the menu? And they go back and ask and they say, yeah, I can make that. And we can make that happen. We got the stuff that we need. So the answer is yes. So the prayer is for whatever you want. And it is a reminder that we are always free to choose. There is one infinite creative power, one divine source that shares itself as all of its creation. It is infinite. It is limited. If you think that 7-page menu or 17-page menu from the diner is big, the infinite is even bigger.
Yeah.
It can create anything. It can create anything. And it has been creating since the very beginning of time. It started out with just itself. There is that one divine power and presence, that one essence. And since the Big Bang, or since the infinite said, let there be light, it has been creating by sharing itself, by revealing itself, by evolving itself and unfolding itself as every part of its creation. Every planet, every person, every particle, everything. From the most distant galaxy to the closest experience that we've ever had. It is all that one divine essence revealed in its own way. That divine power and presence is revealing itself right here and right now as me and each of us. Anything that we can possibly imagine is within the mind of the infinite. If we can think of it, it must be possible somehow. If we believe it's possible, and that's a subset, there's stuff we can think of that we don't believe is possible, so we've actually ruled it out. The infinite hasn't ruled it out, but we have. Everything that we believe is possible is available to us now. And by engaging in this process of acknowledging that we are at the table in this infinite 24-hour diner with an infinite menu in front of us, we are free to choose. What is the next experience I want to have? What do I want to be experiencing next? And we're free to choose. We can set the intention, put it into our word. The response is yes. And at some point, that's what comes out of the kitchen. And we're not left on our own. It is perfectly reasonable to say to the waitress or the waiter, what's good today? And allow the guidance to suggest something that might be uplifting and harmonious that we might not have thought of before. It is a partnership. We are involved in an infinite creative partnership. And the good that we are seeking, the good that we are opening ourselves to, the good that we are inviting is showing up in our lives. For each of us in our own way. We might each be looking at the same menu, or not necessarily choosing the same thing, or the same combination. Good and more good is unfolding right now for each of us. I am so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the awareness of the process. I'm grateful to know that that infinite creative kitchen is standing by ready to create something new and fabulous for and as and through each of us. And so with gratitude for this good, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law, the one that's been creating since the beginning of time. And I know it's now creating this. This is underway now. And so I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com,
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
And that is the Practical Prayer Podcast, episode number 199.
Wow.
Whew, that was great.
I think so. It's
That was
interesting. I didn't know how that was going to come out. How it was going
Good.
to unravel. Yeah.
Good.
Well, I knew it would be
love
good.
a
I just didn't
surprise.
I couldn't figure. I said, let's see how this works. I kind of had ideas because I know how we approach things.
Yep.
But the other side of it is, I think we say the same things a lot of times, just in different ways. And as the whatever the thing was happening there, closing out, I was thinking, okay, so you get into this head thing. You get into this head thing.
Yes, I
But
do.
no, me. I get into this head
Oh,
thing about
yeah.
what you call it personality, and I don't call it that. I call it, I'm a psych major, okay? So I'm all into human behavior and how humans tend to think, and if you can get people to get to a certain point, you can get them to think in a different way, to consider it,
Yep.
if you can push it. So I think we're saying the same thing. We just come from a different place a little bit,
Yeah,
maybe.
a different orientation for it. And I mean, so many of the stories that you've told me about your youth and coming up, because you knew from a very early age that you were partnered with the infinite, that the divine is always with you. And you worked around that by when you were going into a club and you didn't want to be distracted by spiritual stuff. It's like, God, you're going to have to wait in the car.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
worked for you.
Yeah.
It worked for you. And, the same end result happens when you realize that God would go into the club with you and not judge your behavior anyway. But it's okay. And that's why I say personality, because it works.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that
Yeah.
you're doing is very consistent with that approach to spirituality and your not just worldview, but universe view.
Yeah. But I want to still say something about that infinite possibilities.
Okay.
Once you say that, the question is, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Why not? And once you say that, it cancels out everything. Now, let me say this. When you've gotten to a place, when you've had experiences in your life where you don't want to, you thought you had lost it all.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a prayer.
Yep.
The only thing left is to just exit out. Whatever you call rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody says there's infinite possibilities. You said, well, why not? Right? Why not? First of all, it can't get no worse. so I may as well try that. And the other part of it is, you look at the people that throw stones. You look at anything negative, whether it comes from somebody or wherever it comes from, it's not coming from God.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming from somewhere else. So if it's coming from
it's definitely that's a local matter. Yep.
So I was me and the infinite had this understanding. You know, we knew each other. So I don't care about the other stuff. You know that other entity that people talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to me, I could never figure out, why are y'all so upset about this guy? You know, I just don't get it. Because when you talk about God, you say there is no greater power in the universe. Well, then why are you worried about this?
Right.
Is that personality, or is that just looking at the facts?
That is a non-standard way of looking at duality. You know, to think that
Okay.
there's a power for bad to balance out the power for good. And yeah, I mean, if there's one divine power, one source of everything, then if there's a bad guy, that's where the bad guy came from too. So perhaps we need to rethink the bad guy and what purpose is that serving. I do want to point out something that you said, and this will probably make its way into being a full podcast episode. You said it can't get any worse. And I think I've mentioned previously that I will not do a prayer for somebody to learn patience or for somebody to learn forgiveness. Because if you pray for somebody to learn patience, then God puts them at the end of an insanely long line and they don't kill anybody. You pray for somebody to learn forgiveness, there is betrayal after betrayal after betrayal until they're just exhausted and they stop fighting it. So no, I'm not going to do that for somebody. I do not say it can't get any worse, because in a universe of infinite possibilities, yeah, it can.
Yeah, but listen. I'm not letting it go on that one.
I'm done with it. What I hear you meaning is, I'm done with this. This is enough. I've learned my lesson. I'm doing something different.
You're in the whole. When you are in a desperate place, you can't imagine anything worse. You can't imagine. You could tell me all day and all night that it could happen this way, but you are where you are. That's what I mean, meeting a person where they are, or imagining yourself where they are. I cannot imagine anything worse. That's it. This is all I got in the moment.
Okay. All right. We'll go with that.
And-
And there's a feeling to that, and I'm not going to argue with it, because because I would be arguing with the feeling. I'm not going to do that. But I'm thinking about. No, I'm not even going to say it, because it just caused too much trouble. It's another episode.
You're not in trouble.
It's another episode.
Okay. I will leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
now.
again, Carol. Thank you, everybody who's watching and listening on New Thought Media Network. If you have a question or a comment, you can go to the website, which is bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, and submit said question or a prayer request, or tell us about your conundrum, and we'll address it on an upcoming show. Wonderful to have you here, and see you next week.
See?